and had a long discussion. This has come after a long gap actually, ever since the November last year statement by NSCN-IM Supremo T.H. Muiva, where they gave, the Muiva said in that very hard-hitting statement that he put out in November last year, said that if the deadlock in the Naga peace talks is not removed, if the deadlock is not doesn't break, then the Naga movement will resume. Then the NSCN-IM will be forced to carry out an armed resistance. They said that they will resume the violent uprising against the Indian state. That is what, in so many words, NSCN-IM leader has said, that if the deadlock in the Naga peace talks is not resolved, if the deadlock is not withdrawn, and then the entire Naga peace talks will collapse, because they said, threatened that they will come up with an armed resistance once again. Now, in this backdrop, on the 3rd of this month, 20 opposition MPs had also written a letter to Union Home Minister Amit Shah. Basically, they said in their letter, that 20 opposition MPs said in their letter that the gains of the last 30 years that the government of India has achieved as far as narrowing down the differences with the NSCN-IM and other Naga insurgent groups should not be lost, and therefore they have urged upon the government of India to remove the deadlock, to break the stalemate, and resume the dialogue process, which has been in a limbo for several months now, ever since the NSCN-IM had taken up that rigid posture. We all know that the NSCN-IM continues to insist on their core demand of a separate flag and constitution for the Naga people, and they said that unless the government of India concede their core demand of a flag and constitution, they are not going to sign any Naga peace accord. That has been the stand of the NSCN-IM. This is something which the government of India has not been able to achieve a breakthrough, and therefore the deadlock continued. And when the deadlock was not showing any signs of, when the talks were not showing any signs of resuming, that is when in November last year, the NSCN-IM leader Twingaleng Muiva, the general secretary, came up with a very hard-hitting statement saying that they are going to come up with an armed resistance. They are going to resume their armed resistance and go back to the jungles and call off the ceasefire. That is what he had said in that statement. Now, therefore, after this, the government of India had to achieve their clarification. They had to know, it was incumbent upon the government of India, following this statement in November, to ascertain from the NSCN whether they still have faith in the bilateral talk process, that is between the NSCN-IM and the NNPG and the government of India. In this case, they had to ascertain from the NSCN-IM, because NSCN-IM had issued that statement in November. So, first of all, the government of India had to ascertain whether the NSCN-IM still had faith in the bilateral process, and whether they still had faith in the Indian government leadership. Now, this is something which the government of India had to ascertain, and in this backdrop, A.K. Mishra, the government of India representative for the Naga peace talks, arrived in Nagaland, and today he had a meeting with the NSCN-IM leaders. Now, obviously, since there is now indication that the NSCN-IM is going to talk with the government of India once again, the talks are going to resume. This is clear that the NSCN-IM definitely may have accepted, may have told Mishra that they still have faith in the bilateral process, and that they still have faith in the NSCN-IM leadership. Now, this is something, because unless the NSCN-IM had categorically stated that they would like to continue with the bilateral talk process, they will not ask for a third party mediation, as was stated by Muiva in his November statement. Now, it is clear that the NSCN-IM is ready to continue with this bilateral talk process, and also reiterated their faith in the Indian leadership. And it is obviously after getting this commitment on these two fronts that the possibility of talks has brightened. Now, it is also clear that the NSCN-IM for the time being may not insist on a third party mediation. Now, Another thing which is significant at this point is the pressure generated on the government of India by 20 opposition MPs cutting across party lines. They're saying, they wrote a letter to Union Home Minister, as I said a short while ago, on the 3rd of February. They're saying that the 3 decades of gains which the government of India has achieved by narrowing down the differences with the NSCN-IM and others should not be lost, and therefore it is necessary to break the stalemate and once again resume the talks. Now, another thing that one is seeing is some kind of a clear narrative that is building, is that yes, we know that as far as the NSCN-IM is concerned, they have come up with that framework agreement signed on the 3rd of August 2015, and 2 years later the NNPGs, they came up with that agreed positions. So there are two documents, that one is the framework agreement of 2015 signed between the government of India and the NSCN-IM, and the second one is the agreed position signed between the government of India and the NNPGs. Now these two documents are going to be the basic document on which a possible accord, peace accord, is going to be signed. So that was the position so far, but now there is a narrative building among various Naga insurgent groups, as well as Naga Ho has also come up with some kind of a statement, as well as the common Naga people, that first of all, in order to achieve a solution, there has to be one accord at the end of the day, and therefore a common draft has to be prepared that will incorporate all the points in the framework agreement as well as the agreed position, and a common draft is to be formulated that can be gone into by both the NSCN-IM and the NNPGs. At the end of the day, as I said, the Naga Peace Accord has to be one single Naga Peace Accord where everybody will be a signatory. There cannot be a separate accord with the NSCN-IM, there cannot be a separate accord with the NNPGs. That will not solve the problem. And if you have to have a common peace accord based on the two documents, one is the agreed position and one is of course the framework agreement signed with the NSCN-IM, there is this narrative building that about the need for some kind of a common draft, and Government of India should not have much of a problem in working on a common draft once the talks with the NSCN-IM is resumed. And as far as the NNPGs are concerned, yeah, there are other groups which have come into the banner of the NNPGs, or even otherwise, even without the banner of the NNPGs, like the Kitovi group, the Alejo group and others. So all of them may or may not be under the banner of the 7-member NNPGs, but even those groups which are outside the purview of the NNPGs have expressed their desire to be part of the peace process. So that way, the Government of India should have no problem in working towards a common draft, and if it is accepted by the NSCN-IM and the NNPGs as well as the others, I think that will pave the way for an eventual resolution of the long-standing Naga issue. Now, the breaking story at this point is that A.K. Mishra met the NSCN-IM leadership today at a not in Camp Hebron, but at the private residence of an NSCN-IM leader. That is what we are getting to know. And in this during this meeting, obviously, since the NSCN-IM had come up with a very, very hard-hitting statement, as we have been saying, in November last year, they threatened to resume the armed movement against the Indian state. They have threatened to go back to the jungles, and they have threatened to even call off the truce, and they wanted a third-party mediation. So in this backdrop, the talks really were stalled, and the deadlock really showed no signs of a break in that deadlock. Now, in view of this, today's meeting between the Government of India representative A.K. Mishra and the NHN is extremely significant. Now, if news is trickling out from various sources that talks may indeed resume between the NSCN-IM and the Government of India, it is because the NSCN-IM leadership may have told A.K. Mishra that they still have faith in the bilateral talk process between the NSCN-IM and the Government of India. They must have also reiterated their faith in the Government of India. They must have also said that they are ready to once again try out the bilateral talks and not insist on third-party mediation, at least for some time, at least for the time being. And in this backdrop, this is extremely significant. And of course, the other part is that there is some kind of a talk going on the need for a common draft so that the agreed position as well as the framework agreement provisions or points which have been agreed upon already are integrated into this common draft, and that can pave the way for an eventual draft that can eventually lead to a resolution of the long-standing and protracted Naga political issue.
Absolutely. So, Wasbir, can we say that the NSCN-IM has once again decided to show faith in the leadership of the government of India with this eagerness?
Yes, that's what I said, Raunak. It is now one can speculate. One can speak, because we don't know what happened at the talks, because we have not yet been able to speak directly to the top NSCN-IM leaders or to the government of India. But what our sources are telling us, what we have understood, is that if the NSCN-IM has agreed to resume talks, it means they must have expressed their faith in the bilateral peace process, bilateral process of dialogue between the NSCN-IM and the government of India. They must have also expressed their faith in the leadership of the government of India. And already there is also a pressure building up on the government of India by the opposition, and 21 opposition leaders, opposition MPs in the parliament. They said that government of India must come up with a response, an update on the Naga issue in parliament. They said that the gains that has been achieved in the last 30 years in negotiations between the government of India and the NSCN-IM and others should not be lost suddenly, and therefore the government of India needs to once again take a serious view of this situation and break the deadlock and update the parliament. So that was the appeal made in that letter signed on the 3rd of February by 21 opposition MPs to Union Home Minister Amit Shah. So perhaps because of this, as well as the government of India's own initiative to break the deadlock, that A.K. Mishra landed in Nagaland and had this talk, not just of course with the NSCN-IM, but with the different factions of different components of the NNPG. Now that is very significant. A.K. Mishra has since arrived in New Delhi. He has left Nagaland earlier today and arrived in New Delhi, and we'll have to wait and watch as to how things unfold in the days ahead. But one thing is certain, that a fresh round of talks between the government of India and the NSCN-IM is on the cards, and that may happen sooner than later.
Absolutely, Wasbir. So that is indeed, fresh hopes have risen as far as this fresh statement from the NSCN-IM leadership is concerned. Thank you very much, Wasbir Hussain, for all of those details. So that is indeed how things stand at this point in time, viewers. The NSCN-IM has agreed to resume talks